Okay, good morning everybody, and Hazak Ubaru. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning as we are studying together Perashat Vayehi. And with your permission today, I would like to jump to chapter 50, okay, all the way at the end of our Perashah, where Yaakov Avinu passes away. Vayipol Yosef al penei aviv, vayevk alav, vayishak lo. When Yaakov passes away, Yosef flings himself on his father's face and he weeps over him and he kisses him. And he commands all of the physicians to embalm his father. So Yaakov was mummified, and the physicians embalmed Israel. Vayimle'u lo 40 yom. So the 40 days passed, which is the full embalming period. And vayivku oto Mitzrayim 70 yom. And then the Egyptians bewailed him for 70 days. So we're talking about a lot of days that Yaakov is unburied over here. 40 days of the embalming, 70 days of mourning. Vayavru yemei bechito. The wailing period ends, and Joseph now has to go and convince Paro to allow him to bury his father Yaakov where? In Israel. Yaakov did not want to be buried in Mitzrayim. Why didn't he want to be buried in Mitzrayim, by the way? So one of the reasons is because Yaakov knew that there's going to be makat kinim, which is going to afflict all of the sand. Okay, and he didn't want to have to be buried in the sand of Mitzrayim. Okay, there are many reasons. But for whatever reason, he wanted to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. That's what he says is, that's where my father was buried. That's where his father was buried. I'm reminded of the joke of the man that came to the rabbi and he says, "Rabbi, please, I would like if you could make me a kohen, and I would give you $10,000 to your synagogue." And the rabbi says, "Listen, it's very generous, but we don't do that. We don't just, make people kohanim." The guy says, "Okay, Rabbi, 20,000, please." And the rabbi's like, "It's very super generous of you. Maybe, you want to go down the block. There are other synagogues that will do that. We don't do that here." So the guy says, "Rabbi, last chance, 50,000, you make me a kohen right now." And the rabbi is shocked. Wow, $50,000. Maybe today you have to adjust the numbers. Today maybe the price isn't so impressive. But whatever it is, he says $50,000. That's a lot of money just to be a kohen. Could I ask, why do you want to be a kohen so badly? And the guy says, "Listen, my father was a kohen. His father was a kohen. So I really would love if I could also be a kohen." So that is what I'm reminded of when Yaakov says, "My father was buried and his father was buried, and I would love to be buried there as well." So I'm not sure if the rabbi ended up doing it for him for 50,000 or maybe he just told him. But either way, here is Yosef now having to try to convince this king Paro to allow him to take Yaakov to bury him in Israel. And you may ask, "Rabbi, why is that such a hard task? What's the problem? Why should Paro not agree to this?" And the answer is because Yaakov was a very big good luck charm. The second he comes down to Mizrahi, the famine ended. So it was only 2 years of famine, even though in the dreams there was 7. It was 2, and there was a big break when Yaakov came down. And Paro wouldn't want to let the bracha leave. So he tried doing whatever he can to let Yaakov stay buried even in Mitzrayim. Of course, we all know that Yosef swore, and he had this whole conversation with Paro. "I swore, I got to keep my swear." And Paro respected it, and he honored the swear. There are midrashim of why he honors the swear. One of the midrashim is that when Yosef met Paro for the first time, they spoke all 70 languages to each other. English, Spanish, French, I don't know, whatever it is. They went through all of the language, como ça va, como está, buongiorno. He went through all the languages, and finally he gets to the top step, and Yosef is standing facing the king, and he says to him, "Shalom, welcome, hello to my dear king," in Hebrew. And what did Paro say? Right? Miskuzi? Sorry, what was that? He had no idea what the guy is saying. And he made Yosef swear that he wouldn't reveal the secret, that he knows more languages than even Paro himself. So now swears are a very sore topic for Paro. Just imagine, now he goes to Paro and says, "I swore." What's Paro going to say? Who cares about swears? Oh yeah? Who cares about swears? All right, I guess the swear that we made many, many years ago also doesn't matter, right? Right, Paro? And Paro's like, "Oh, all right, fine. Keep your swear. Just kidding. JK, swears are important. what he does. He's ready to now. He goes, he buries his father. Vayomer Paro ale ukvor et avicha ka'asher ishbi'echa. Go up and bury your dad. Vayal Yosef likvor et aviv. Yosef goes up to bury his father. Vayalu ito kol avdei Paro. All of Paro's officials go up. Right? V'chol ziknei Eretz Yisrael. All of the senior members of his court. All of Egypt's dignitaries. So this is a very important, very chashuv funeral. They're all going to bury him. I would like to share with you a Gemara over here in Masechet Sotah. If you have a Gemara, you want to open it up. It's going to be found on page Yud Gimal 13a. The Gemara fills us in on a story that's not brought down in the Torah, but we know that there are many things that are not written in the Torah. Right? The Torah writes very few stories, but the Midrash over here, the Torah Shebe'al Peh, fills us in. Kevan shehegi'u lim'arat ha'machpelah. Once they reach the cave of Machpelah, Ata Esav. Esav came, Ka me'akev, and he was preventing them from burying Jacob in Me'arat HaMachpelah. Did you know this story or no? This is a great story. Take a look. Gemara says, Amar Lan. He says, Esav says to them, Mamre Kiryat Ha'arba hi Hebron. Right? Mamre to Kiryat Arba, the same is Hebron. And Amar B'itzchak Kiryat Arba Zugot Hayu. You know why is the city called Kiryat Arba? Because there were 4 couples. Adam v'Chava, Avraham v'Sara, Yitzchak v'Rivka, Yaakov v'Leah. Now, says Esav, Ihu kabra le'Leah bedidei. Jacob buries Leah in his spot. Yitzchak and Rivka have 2 children, me and Yaakov. Yaakov took his spot and he gave it to his wife Leah. That's fair, it's his spot, he can do whatever he wants with it. However, Hai de Payesh Didihu, the remaining plot, the remaining spot in Me'arat HaMachpelah is mine. And so now Esav is standing there, closing his arms, preventing them from burying Yaakov in Me'arat HaMachpelah. So what did the brothers say? Amrule, the children of Jacob say to Esav, Zabente, what do you mean? You sold your rights to Yaakov. Amar lehu, Nihid zabine bechiruta. Pshututa mi zabine. He said to them, I sold the birthright. Did I sell the burial site? I didn't sell the burial, I just sold the birthright. Amru le'in. Yes, you did. Tichtiv bekivri asher kariti li. And they bring to him a pasuk that Yaakov says, I have dug for me my grave. And Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehotzadak that the word kira is another word for sale, like mechira. So Yaakov didn't just dig the grave. Kariti could also be mechira, I bought. So Yaakov, we know, bought Esav's share in Me'arat HaMachpelah. And therefore, Esav, you own 0 over here. Yaakov owns both spots. He gave 1 to Leah and 1 for himself. You think Esav accepted this answer? No, sir. Let's see what happens. Amar lehu, havuli igarta. Well, listen, you claim that you bought it from me. Can you prove it? Bring the bill of sale to me. Let's see if you can prove it. You can prove it. Amrule igarta be'arad Mizrahi. Hello, I mean, the bill of sale is all the way back in Egypt. All our documents. They didn't have, Google Docs that they could save all of their documents on one file. They said it's back in Egypt. Man Nizel, who should we send to go bring it? Nizel Naftali. You know what? Let's send Naftali. Why Naftali? The Kalil ki ayalta. Because he is as fast as a ayal. What's a ayal? A doe. Right? What's a doe? Right? Doe, a deer, a female deer. Right? Okay? So he is as fast as a female deer. So send Naftali. Tichtiv Naftali ayala sheluha. Naftali is a doe let loose. He gives goodly words. Anoten imre shafer. So that's the blessing that Yaakov gave to Naftali. So let us send Naftali. He's fast. Okay? I'm not sure why they send someone running as opposed to sending somebody on a horse. Okay? I mean, maybe he was fastest on a horse. Either way. Amar Rabbi Abahu. Atikre Imre Shafer ela Imre Sefer. Okay, Imre Sefer means he came to get the bill of sale. So we have a very interesting story over here. Yaakov Avinu is dead. He's there, riding in the sun, and Esav is causing problems. Whoa, what's going on over here? This is my spot. Yaakov's not getting nothing. And they say to him, no, we have a sale, we have a bill, you sold it, prove it. Okay, they send Naphtali. Okay, now they're waiting. They're playing cards. I don't know what they're doing. They're waiting for the bill of sale to come back from Egypt now. Hushim, Gemara continues, the story's not over. Hushim berei de Dan taman hava. Now Hushim, the son of Dan, is there. Hushim, he's the grandson of Yaakov Avinu. So he's there with everybody else. Veyakiran leudne. He was kind of deaf, the Gemara says. His ears were heavy. Hushim is watching, but he don't know what's going on. It's like, watching a movie in Chinese. He didn't know what's being said. He didn't hear the conversation. Amar lehu my high. So he's like, hey, everybody, what's going on over here? Why are they not burying Yaakov? My high. What's going on? Amruleh. They said to him, Ka me'akev hai. They said, this one, Esav, is preventing us from burying him ad de'ate Naphtali me'arad Mizrahi, till Naphtali comes back from Egypt to prove the bill of sale, with the bill of sale. Amar lehu ve'ad de'ate Naphtali me'arad Mizrahi. So Hushim says, whoa, time out. So you're going to keep until he comes back from Mitzrayim, which could be a long time, a few days, who knows? Yehe avi abba, my grandpa, should be mutal bebizayon. So grandpa's going to sit in degradation till they bring a proof of the sale? Shekal kulfa, says the Gemara. Crazy. What does Naphtali do? Hushim ben Dan do? He took a kulfa, a club. Mahyeh areshe, he whacks Esav on the head. Natran ene unfalu akara de Yaakov. And his eyes fell out and they fall onto the legs of Jacob. Okay, so this is really an amazing midrash. And this is according to the midrash how Esav dies. It's right here on the spot when Hushim whacks Esav on the head and his eyes pop out. Again, I'm not sure which parts of the story are literal, which parts of the story have a deeper allegorical meaning, but it's all emet and it's all has tremendous depth to the story. What the midrash, this is a rich midrash, what the commentaries try to do is explain what the midrash is offering here. But I don't want to go today into the details of the midrash. What does it mean that his eyes popped out? Why did they fall specifically on Yaakov's legs? It's interesting that it falls on his legs because Yaakov's name is heel, and he was holding on Esav's heel, and now Esav's holding on his heel, so to speak. A lot of deep stuff going on. But I wanted today, just for a few minutes, share with you a very powerful, beautiful Dvar Torah from Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. Okay, anyone here ever heard? According to the Gemara, it says eyes. Okay, it says eyes over here. Natran Eineh, his eyes fell out. Okay, again, different midrashim, different versions, and each one is true and has its own meaning. But I want to share with you Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. Okay, Rav Chaim Shmulevitz from the Mir passed away in the last century, and he has a beautiful question here. And he asks, Madua hit'orer davka Hushim ben Dan lid'og lichvodo shel Yaakov Avinu. Why is it that of all of the people there, Hushim is the only one that cared to defend the respect and the honor of Yaakov? You had all of the other tribes there, all of the uncles there, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, right? All of the tribes. None of them thought of getting Esav out of the way. None of the grandkids thought of getting Esav out of the way. The only one that did it was Hushim, the grandson, Dan's son. Why did Hushim specifically, why was he the one that cared to do this and remove Esav out of the way? It explains with Chaim Shmulevitz. Please let me read it to you. We learn such an important lesson about human nature. You know, there is a phenomenon called, in human terms, something that we call acclimating. What does acclimate? What does it mean to acclimate? It means to adjust, right? When you adjust to a certain reality. So I'll give you an example, okay? Sometimes you could live with someone for very long and you don't notice that really this person is changing daily. Okay, let's say you're living with your mom or your wife and she's pregnant and she's every day getting bigger and bigger. You don't really notice the change, okay? Because physical changes in people happen in such an incremental rate that they're only really noticeable over gaps of time, right? When you see somebody every day, you don't really notice the change. But compare that to your aunt who didn't see you in 5 years, and then she's like, oh my gosh, you got so big, and she's kissing you with her lipstick, right? And that's what happens when you live with someone for a long time. You don't really notice the changes that happen in a day-to-day situation. When we see someone, we mentally compare them to the image we have stored in our mind. From one day to the next, they don't change all that much. The basic shape of their face is very nearly the same as the day before, for example. And as long as everything more or less lines up with our stored image of yesterday, we recognize them as looking more or less like they looked the day before. But here's the kicker. Upon recognizing them as looking the same as they did yesterday, we update our stored image of what they look like with how they look today. So when you see someone every day, you only ever see 1 day's worth of difference when you compare the reality to the stored image. Your brain will store the most recent image, and the most recent image is today's image. So when you're seeing them tomorrow, it's happening in an incremental rate, and you don't notice the difference. When you see someone that you haven't seen in years, so the gap is what you saw 5 years ago, what you see now. So there's a huge difference, right? Whether people are growing or people are changing or whatever the change may be. So this is something that is called, right, adjusting or acclimating. It's not a bad thing always. It could be fine, right? But that's the brain. The brain acclimates. And this is why as well we conform. Sometimes we conform because we acclimate. And sometimes acclimating is good. Sometimes acclimating is not so good. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes a kid will come back from yeshiva or go from seminary and they come back super stark, very religious, extra frum, and they're all inspired and they're learning and they're carrying 17 books with them. And when they go to a wedding, they're not looking at anything that's inappropriate, and they're not eating anything that's safek, maybe not the best hashkacha, and they're super, super religious. Beautiful, beautiful. And what happens is something called adjusting. We adapt. And the person, after 1 week, will slowly start adapting to the new reality that they're in. And maybe what a week ago was, oh my God, horrible, but their mind, their eyes, everything starts slowly adjusting. Our eyes do this. If you turn off the lights right now, your eyes won't see, but then your eyes will adjust to be able to see in the dark. Right? So, and sometimes when people are not aware of this, you could have a person that comes back all inspired from Israel as an example, and there's things that they would never do. Chas v'shalom. What are you talking about? I'm a tzaddik. In my wildest dreams, I would never do such a thing. But what happens is when every day a little bit, they start shifting slowly down the slope, down the hill to the wrong path. And they don't even notice. It's just a little bit of a change every day, a little bit different. And then they're all the way down here and they started up here and they don't notice the change. But maybe if you took a step back and you didn't live with this person day to day, but you just looked at them 5 years ago and you look at them now, you're like, oh my God, what happened to you? Right? This happened to me yesterday. I went back to visit the high school that I taught in a few years ago. And I didn't see these kids in a few years. And you see them now, you're like, wow, they changed physically, they changed maturity-wise, they changed mentally, spiritually, but you don't know it. And everyone else is like, what do you mean? This is Joe. This is Joe. You know Joe. I'm like, I don't recognize Joe because I saw Joe here and now Joe is here. But with the kids of his class, the kids of his grade, they know Joe. They notice Joe every single day. To them, they don't notice the difference. So explains Rav Chaim Shmulevitz the following, and he says this idea of acclimating, of getting used to a new reality, Asono shel Adam, sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes it's a tragedy that we get used to our realities. Shepa'amim rabot nigrar mikol siba shehi lemtziut ulmatzav. Sometimes we're dragged to a situation shebe'etzem nogdim et retzono v'tfisato, which go against our value system. Sometimes we could have certain values and then we're confronted with a scenario, with a reality that goes against what we believe in. And what happens is, hu benakel mizdahe matzavim nosafim shebemim kitikunam hem lo lezara. What happens is when a person slowly starts getting used to it, they don't even notice anymore that they've adjusted to this new lifestyle that they were so opposed to just a few months ago, because it happens gradually, right? It explains, Afkan b'nei Yaakov, so too the children of Yaakov, vehitvakho im Esav, the brothers of Yaakov, the sons, of Yaakov, the brothers and Esav, when they get there to the Me'arat HaMachpelah and they're ready to bury their father, says Rabbi Shmulevitz, bechol mishpat she'amru lo hashvu shehinehem menatzchim oto. He says what happened is they get there and their father is sitting there, needs a burial. The body is being disgraced. And they get to the Me'arat HaMachpelah, they get to the grave, and Esav is there. And Esav says, whoa, what's going on over here? This is my spot. And they thought, we're just going to give him one answer, and we're gonna bury our father. So they say, no! This is his. He bought it from you. Okay, now let us go. And they started engaging in a conversation. Once you engage in a conversation, then Esav says back, well, one second, wait, he only sold me the birthright. I didn't sell him the grave, did I? And they said back, no, what do you mean? You did sell him the grave. And every sentence, they slowly started adjusting to this fact that Yaakov, it's okay for him to not be buried. And so what starts over here, that dad's getting, his body is being being belittled. Slowly, you engage with Esav in a conversation, and then you're sending off Naphtali to go find the contract somewhere in Egypt. And they didn't notice the gradual change, even though it was just in a few minutes, but it happened slowly. Compare this to who? There's only one person that wasn't lost in the shuffle, in the conversation with Esav. He wasn't distracted with all of the noise in between. There was only one person that was like the ant, that didn't see him for 5 years. And that is Hushim ben Dan. Because Hushim starts here. He sees Yaakov in the sun getting his body being disgraced. And then he sees here that they're not burying him. And he's not involved in the in-between conversation. So he never adjusts. He never adjusts to the new reality. And so he was able to stay with his original values intact. They never waned. They never decreased. They never got neutralized. And that's specifically why, says Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, for him it was like an automatic shift. It was a change that happened in one shot. And he says, whoa, my father's being disgraced. And therefore he took the stick and he was able to say, this is horrible, this is wrong. So it's an amazing lesson that sometimes in our lives, where we live, the people that we are around, we come into a community, we come into a situation, and there are people around us that we say, whoa, that's horrible, that's wrong, those are not our values, those are not the Torah's values, that's not how I was raised. And we're very strong in the beginning of what we think, but what happens is we spend a day, and then another day, and another day, and we slowly start adjusting. We gradually start conforming to our surroundings. There's a great story about a rabbi that once came to visit America, and he stayed in a rabbi's house, and the host offered him coffee. So the visiting rabbi says, I'll take the coffee. Is the milk Chalav Israel? Is the milk the extra level of kosher? And he says, no, in America we don't have Chalav Israel. It's regular Chalav, kosher milk, but not Chalav Israel. So the rabbi says, okay, in that case, I'll pass on the milk. Okay. The next day, the host again offers him coffee, and the guest says, and again he offers him milk, and the guest says, is the milk Chalav Yisrael? And the host says, no. So he says, I understand. I told you yesterday that I only take Chalav Yisrael. Why are you offering me again today the same milk as yesterday if you already know what my take is? And the rabbi, the host, said back, such a interesting but really a powerful thought. And he said back, Rabbi, I thought that already one day in America and you'd start drinking regular milk like the rest of us. So that is something that we have to be aware of and be careful of when we have our values, to always try to make sure that we don't let the gradual day-to-day wear and tear of life pull us down without even noticing the change that's happening. Okay, well, the brothers bury Yaakov, and then they go back to Egypt. Take a look at what happens. Vayiru Ehai Yosef, Pasuk 15. The brothers notice, Ki met avihim. They realize their father is dead. Vayomru Lu yistemenu Yosef. Wow. If Joseph still bears a grudge against us, Vehashiv lanu et kol hara'ah, he's going to pay us back for all the wrong asher gamalnu oto that we have done to him. What an interesting thought process right now that the brothers have. They realize, oh no, dad's gone. He was the glue keeping us together. He was separating the fight from happening. And now that he's dead, Yosef's going to take his revenge against us. Yosef lemor. So they sent this message to Joseph. They didn't even tell it to themselves. They sent a messenger to tell it to him. What's the message? What's the message? Avicha tziva, your father, commanded, lifnei moto, before his death, the following. Dad told us to tell you. Okay? Now let's see. What did Dad tell us to tell you? Pasuk 17. Ko tomeru li Yosef, this is what you should tell Yosef. Ana, forgive. Sana pesha ahecha, please forgive the sin of your brothers. Vechatatam. Kira'ah gemalucha, who acted so harshly. Ve'ata, and now sana lefesha avdei Elohei avicha. Therefore, please forgive the offense of the servants of the God of your father. So the brothers here are commanding Joseph in the name of their father, Yaakov. Dad wants you to forgive us, please. Vayef Yosef b'dabram. Yosef starts crying as he hears these words. And then the brothers come to him and they fall in front of him and they start begging for forgiveness. And Yosef has to calm them down and says, don't worry, am I instead of God? It's not me. You thought you're hurting me. This only came out to be the best. This is an amazing exchange. But the question remains, when did Yaakov ever tell the brothers that Yosef should forgive them? When did Yaakov tell them to ask forgiveness? Did he ever tell it to them? We don't see it in the text. We don't see that Yaakov says to the brothers, as far as we're concerned, Yaakov doesn't even know what happened. It's very possible, and there are many commentaries that suggest this, that Yaakov never finds out the truth. By the way, when Yaakov comes down to Mizrahi, where does Yosef situate him? He puts him in Goshen. Yosef never really spends much time with his father, even though they're reunited. And you would think they're going to go golfing every week. They're going to play tennis every day. They're going to hang out. They don't. He has to send a message. Could you bring Yosef? So simply you say, well, Yosef was a busy guy. He's in charge of the food. He's an important man. He doesn't have time to chill with his father. But maybe also Yosef on purpose was avoiding contact with his father so that his father shouldn't ever have that conversation with him. The conversation where he raises the question of, so Yosef, what really happened on that day? Yosef was avoiding that question. He didn't want his father to have to ask him. He's going to answer what happened. Oh, my brothers, they saw. So according to many, Yosef never tells his father. Yaakov never finds out. How does that fit with this pasuk? The pasuk says, Avicha tziva, Dad told us to ask you forgiveness. But according to this, the dad never knew. So either the brothers were lying, or there's an amazing answer from Rav Meir Shapiro. You have to hear this answer because it's really powerful. You know, the brothers sell Yosef. And we know that selling your brother is a bad thing, okay? Can we all agree? Bad thing? Not endorsing that. It's a bad thing. It's a terrible thing. Fortunately, lucky for them, it ended up actually helping them, right? Selling Yosef came back to actually be the reason that they were supported and they were able to survive during the horrible famine. So it ultimately benefited Yosef. Again, they thought to hurt him, but with remarkable hashkacha pratit and a sequence of events, Yosef emerges as viceroy over Egypt. So the brothers over here, they feel regret. But now the question is an apology necessary? If you try hurting somebody and you end up only benefiting them, do you have to apologize? You send merchandise to somebody that they didn't order. They ordered one item, you send them a different item. And you're doing it on purpose because you're trying to get rid of the no good goods. You're trying to get rid of the old goods. So you're sending him purple. No one wants purple. Everyone wants black. But you send him purple. Purple ends up being a sick, hot color that year. The guy starts killing it in business. And the purple that you send him only benefits him in business. Now Yom Kippur comes. You have to apologize to him. The guy didn't want purple. He called him. He's like, why'd you send me this color? You're like, I don't know. That's all we had. Blah, blah, blah. You gave him some excuse. Now Yom Kippur, you feel bad. You want to do tshuva. So you think about all the people that you hurt and that you lied to throughout the year. You think of this guy. You're like, you know what? I ended up helping him. He should pay me, maybe. Royalty. Guy benefited from the color. What do you say? So if we analyze Yaakov and what he does, we will find an answer to our question. To understand this, let us go back to chapter 48, Pasuk 7. Okay? Chapter 48, Pasuk 7. Yaakov is on the deathbed. He calls Yosef over. And he over here is having this father to son talk of, please, I need you to bury me in Israel. Okay? And now, right? He gives him the good news that your two sons, Ephraim and Asher, are going to be like two tribes in their own right. And then, look at this. Very interesting. Pasuk 7. Now, when I returned from Padan, Rachel died, to my sorrow, while I was journeying in the land of Canaan, when still some distance short of Ephrat. And I buried her there on the road to Ephrat, which is now Bethlehem. And all of a sudden, he throws in a sentence of him burying Rachel on the road. What in the world does that have to do with anything? Why is he telling this to his son? What is he even trying to tell his son? You know, Yosef, I buried Rachel, your mom, on the side of the road. It really has tried to fit it into what's going on. It has nothing to do with anything. Then he sees his two sons. He says, who are these kids? And he says, these are my two sons, Ephraim and Asher. And then he blesses them. But what exactly was he saying to Yosef with this sentence? That I buried your mother Rachel in Bethlehem instead of Me'arat HaMachpelah. And really, what Yaakov was doing, he was apologizing. He was apologizing to Yosef for not taking the effort of going and burying Rachel a little bit deeper in Israel to Me'arat HaMachpelah. Instead, he buried her right there on the road. Now, the fact that Rachel was buried where she was buried, was that something that was bad? It was bad, right? She wasn't buried in Me'arat HaMachpelah with everyone else. But actually, we know the famous Midrash, that it ended up benefiting the Jewish people. Says Rav Meir Shapiro, because we know that when the Jews were taken into Galut, they passed by whose grave? By whose kever? They passed by kever Rachel. And the Midrash tells us, based on the Pasuk in Yirmiyah, that Hashem says to Rachel, Min'i kolech mebechi, please don't cry, Rachel. Veshavu banim legvulam, your children will be brought back to their borders. They passed by Rachel's grave, and she was begging for Hashem for mercy. So the fact that she was buried in Bethlehem actually comes back to help the Jewish people. However, here is our case, by the way. You did something bad to someone. It ended up being good. You bury Rachel on the road. Not ideal. But it ends up helping us. Because now we get forgiven when we're taken into exile. She could pray and she cries for us. Does Yaakov need to apologize for this? And Yaakov tells us 100%. Just because something good came out, you intended to harm them, you must apologize. And therefore, Yaakov apologizes to Yosef. And if from here the brothers learned to their question as well, if dad apologizes what he did to Yosef's mom, even though something good came out of it, then we as well must apologize of what we did to Yosef, even though something good came out of it. So when the brothers say, Avicha tzivah, maybe it wasn't an explicit command from Jacob to ask forgiveness from the brothers, from Yosef, but Yaakov's behavior served as a message to his children and future generations to ask forgiveness, even if the initial suffering later results in goodness and in blessing. So this is also, I think, an amazing chidush. Sometimes in our lives, we hurt people. We didn't intend to hurt them. It's not my fault. They're hypersensitive. But you hurt somebody. Doesn't matter what came out of it at the end. Your responsibility is to apologize for your actions. Okay, so I think these are two ideas from the ending of our parasha. One about acclimating and beware of acclimation. I don't know if that's a word, but beware of adjustments that are maybe for the no good, and as well when sometimes apologies are due, even if we maybe we feel differently. Okay. Anyways, wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom. We'll stop over here, and God willing, we'll see you all next week. See you Sunday. Bye bye.